The evening was alive with the hum of laughter and clinking glasses. Lucas had decided to throw a party at their luxurious penthouse to celebrate the success of his latest legal case. The room was bathed in warm, golden light, and the air was thick with the scent of expensive perfume and champagne. Anna stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, her curvy hourglass figure accentuated by the tight red satin dress she wore. The daring slit up her thigh caught the light with every movement, and her bold red lipstick added a touch of allure to her already striking presence. She sipped her wine, her eyes scanning the room. When the door opened, and in walked Daniel. Daniel was impossible to miss. Tall, muscular, and dressed in a fitted charcoal shirt that hugged his broad shoulders. He exuded confidence. His jeans were perfectly tailored, and his piercing gaze immediately locked onto Anna. There was something magnetic about him, something that made the room seem to pause for a moment. Lucas, ever the gracious host, greeted Daniel with a firm handshake and a smile. But Anna couldn't help but notice the way Daniel's eyes lingered on her. Anna, this is Daniel, Lucas introduced, his voice warm but oblivious to the tension that had just sparked in the air. It's a pleasure, Daniel said, his voice smooth as velvet. He took Anna's hand, his grip firm yet lingering just a second too long. His eyes traveled over her, and Anna felt a shiver run down her spine. The pleasure's mine, she replied, her voice steady despite the sudden flutter in her chest. As the night progressed, Daniel found every excuse to be near her. He complimented her dress, her hair, the way she laughed. His words were laced with a subtle charm that was hard to resist. At one point, he leaned in close, his breath warm against her ear as he whispered, "You're the most captivating woman in this room." Anna felt a rush of heat spread through her, but she quickly composed herself, offering him a coy smile. "Careful, Daniel, flattery will get you everywhere." The chemistry between them was undeniable, and even though Anna knew she shouldn't entertain it, she couldn't help but be drawn to him. They talked, they laughed, and with every passing moment, the tension between them grew. Lucas, busy mingling with other guests, remained oblivious to the undercurrents swirling around his wife and his colleague. By the end of the night, as the guests began to leave, Daniel handed Anna his business card, his fingers brushing against hers deliberately. "In case you ever want to continue this conversation," he said, his voice low and suggestive. Anna took the card, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew this was dangerous territory, but there was something about Daniel that made her want to step over the line. The days following the party were a blur for Anna. She tried to focus on her work in the fashion industry, but her thoughts kept drifting back to Daniel. His words, his gaze, the way he had looked at her, it all played on a loop in her mind. She told herself it was nothing, just a harmless flirtation, but deep down, she knew it was more than that. It started with a text. A simple, "Good morning," from Daniel, followed by a compliment about how stunning she had looked at the party. Anna hesitated before replying, but curiosity got the better of her. Their messages quickly became more frequent, more intimate. He would send her photos of his day, and she would respond with playful banter. It was thrilling, dangerous, and impossible to resist. One afternoon, a package arrived at her office. Inside was a delicate gold bracelet, accompanied by a note, "For the woman who shines brighter than the stars." Daniel, Anna's heart raced as she fastened the bracelet around her wrist. She knew she shouldn't accept it, but the temptation was too strong. That evening, as she sat alone in their penthouse, Lucas was still at work, buried in another case. Her phone buzzed. Another message from Daniel. "Dinner tonight? Just the two of us." Anna stared at the screen, her mind racing. She knew it was wrong, but the thought of seeing him again was intoxicating. She replied with a single word, "Where?" Daniel picked her up in his sleek black car, and they drove to an exclusive restaurant overlooking the city. The atmosphere was intimate, the lighting soft and romantic. Daniel was charming as ever, his every word and gesture designed to draw her in. He spoke of his travels, his ambitions, and his admiration for her. Anna found herself hanging on his every word, her defenses slowly crumbling. As the night wore on, the conversation turned more personal. Daniel leaned in, his voice low and intimate. You're not happy, are you? With Lucas? I mean. Anna froze, caught off guard by the question. What makes you say that? I can see it in your eyes. He said, his gaze piercing. You deserve someone who sees you. Who truly appreciates you. Anna felt a lump form in her throat. She wanted to deny it. To defend her marriage. But the truth was, she had been feeling disconnected from Lucas for a while. Daniel's words struck a chord. And for the first time, she allowed herself to consider the possibility that maybe he was right. When Daniel dropped her off at home, he didn't say goodbye. Instead, he cupped her face in his hands and kissed her, a kiss that was both tender and demanding. Anna's mind screamed at her to pull away, but her body betrayed her. Melting into him, she stepped back, her heart pounding. This can't happen, she whispered, but the look in her eyes said otherwise. Daniel smiled, a knowing smile. It already has. The tension between Anna and Daniel had reached a boiling point. Every text, every glance, every stolen moment only added fuel to the fire. Anna knew she was playing with fire. But the pull was irresistible. Lucas, oblivious to the storm brewing in his own home, remained buried in his work, leaving Anna feeling more isolated than ever. It was a Friday night when everything came to a head. Lucas had texted her earlier, saying he'd be working late again. Anna sat alone in the penthouse. The silence deafening. Her phone buzzed. A message from Daniel. I'm outside. Let me in. Her heart raced as she hesitated. But the thought of another lonely night was too much to bear. She opened the door, and there he was, standing in the dimly lit hallway. His fitted charcoal shirt slightly unbuttoned. His eyes dark with desire. Without a word, he stepped inside, closing the door behind him. This is dangerous, Anna whispered, but her voice trembled with anticipation. Life's too short to play it safe. Daniel replied, his voice low and commanding. He reached for her, pulling her close, and this time, Anna didn't resist. Their lips met in a kiss that was both desperate and passionate. A culmination of weeks of pent-up tension. The night that followed was a whirlwind of emotions. They moved from the living room to the bedroom. Their connection undeniable. For Anna, it was a mix of guilt and exhilaration. A forbidden pleasure she couldn't deny. For Daniel, it was a conquest. A way to claim what he believed was his. As the hours passed, the reality of what she had done began to sink in. Anna lay in bed, her mind racing. She thought of Lucas, of the vows they had made, and the life they had built together. The guilt was overwhelming, but so was the realization that she couldn't go back to the way things were. Daniel, sensing her turmoil, reached for her hand. You don't have to feel guilty for wanting to be happy, he said, his voice soft but persuasive. Anna turned to him, tears in her eyes. But what if this is a mistake? What if I'm throwing everything away for something that won't last? Daniel cupped her face, his gaze intense. Sometimes, you have to take a risk to find what's real. And what we have, this connection, it's real. Anna wanted to believe him. But the weight of her decisions was crushing. She knew that no matter what happened next, her life would never be the same. The morning after was a blur for Anna. She woke up alone in her bed. The sheets still rumpled from the night before. Daniel had left at dawn, leaving behind a note on the nightstand. Think about what you really want. I'll be waiting. Anna stared at the note, her heart heavy with guilt and confusion. She tried to go about her day as usual, but her mind was a battlefield. Every time she thought of Lucas, a wave of shame washed over her. She had betrayed him, the man who had stood by her through thick and thin. But at the same time, she couldn't shake the feeling that something had been missing in their marriage for a long time. That evening, Lucas came home early for once. He looked exhausted, but he smiled when he saw her. Hey, gorgeous, he said, pulling her into a hug. Anna froze, her body stiff with guilt. What's wrong? Lucas asked, sensing her unease. Anna took a deep breath. She knew she couldn't keep lying to him. We need to talk, she said, her voice trembling. They sat down on the couch, and Anna began to tell him everything, the texts, the dinner, the bracelet, the night with Daniel. Lucas listened in silence, his face growing darker with every word. When she finished, he stood up, his hands clenched into fists. How could you do this to us? He asked, his voice shaking with anger and hurt. I don't know, Anna whispered, tears streaming down her face. I'm so sorry, Lucas. I never meant to hurt you. Lucas turned away, his shoulders tense. You didn't just hurt me, Anna. You destroyed everything we had. The days that followed were a whirlwind of emotions. Lucas moved out of the penthouse, leaving Anna alone with her thoughts. She tried to reach out to him, to explain, but he refused to answer her calls or texts. Meanwhile, Daniel continued to pursue her, his messages growing more insistent. You don't need him, Daniel texted one night. You deserve someone who will put you first. Anna wanted to believe him, but the guilt was overwhelming. She knew she had made a mistake, but she wasn't sure if she could fix it. One evening, she decided to visit Lucas at his new apartment. She knocked on the door, her heart pounding. When he opened it, he looked tired, his eyes hollow. What do you want, Anna? He asked, his voice cold. I want to fix this, she said, tears in her eyes. I know I messed up, but I love you, Lucas. I don't want to lose you. Lucas sighed, running a hand through his hair. I don't know if we can fix this. Anna, you broke my trust, and I don't know if I can ever get that back. Anna felt her heart shatter. She had lost him, and she had no one to blame but herself. The weeks after her confession were the hardest of Anna's life. Lucas had made it clear that he needed space, and Anna respected that, though it tore her apart. She spent her days in a haze of regret, replaying every moment of her betrayal in her mind. Daniel continued to reach out, but Anna ignored his messages. She knew now that he wasn't the answer. He was just a distraction from the real issues in her life. One evening, as she sat alone in the penthouse, Anna realized she couldn't keep living like this. She needed to take responsibility for her actions and figure out who she was without relying on someone else to fill the void. She started therapy, determined to understand why she had made the choices she did. It wasn't easy. The sessions were painful, forcing her to confront her insecurities and the cracks in her marriage that she had ignored for so long. But slowly, she began to see things more clearly. She realized that her affair with Daniel wasn't just about him. It was about her own unhappiness and her inability to communicate her needs to Lucas. Meanwhile, Lucas was struggling too. He had thrown himself into work, trying to numb the pain. But it wasn't enough. He missed Anna, but the betrayal was still too fresh. One night, he found himself at their favorite coffee shop, the place where they had shared so many memories. He ordered her usual drink without thinking. And as he sat there, he realized he wasn't ready to let go. A few days later, Lucas showed up at the penthouse. Anna opened the door, her heart racing. Can we talk? He asked, his voice soft but steady. They sat down on the couch, and Lucas took a deep breath. I've been doing a lot of thinking, he said, and I realized that I'm not ready to give up on us. But we can't just go back to the way things were. We need to work on this, together. Anna felt a glimmer of hope for the first time in weeks. I want that too, she said, tears in her eyes. I know I messed up, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make this right. The road to healing wasn't easy. They went to couples therapy, learning to communicate openly and honestly about their feelings. There were moments of anger and frustration, but also moments of connection and love. Slowly, they began to rebuild their trust, one small step at a time. As for Daniel, Anna sent him one final message. I'm choosing my marriage. Please don't contact me again. She blocked his number, finally closing that chapter of her life.